Hi all, good evening and welcome to tonight's vigil. We're gathering tonight in this shared online space to remember lives lost to ableism, neglect and systemic violence. Whether you are here to remember a specific person, to honour our disabled history, or be together in the weeks following the Labour Party's decision, and it is a decision, that disabled people should face another round of disability cuts, you're welcome. I want to begin by talking around what a vigil is. You might have been to a vigil before when someone has died, or you've heard the word used in the context of keeping vigil as someone is dying. Vigils have been used throughout history across many cultures and different communities to mourn injustice, to make care visible, and to resist forgetting. A vigil is a moment of collective pause, a way to hold space for our grief, and disabled grief can take many, many forms. It can be grieving a life that we had before we became disabled, grieving the lives that we were never allowed to have because of ableism, and grieving the names of people that we've lost because the waiting list was just too long, the ambulance never came, and because the world keeps telling us again and again that we are not wanted and our lives do not matter. But we know they do. We hope that by being together this evening, we can be together in our collective grief, in our collective remembrance, and our collective resistance. Vigils are also a way for communities to be together, for allies to show up, because we notice when you do. There's also no wrong way to be a part of tonight, and you might find that you're a bit sad, a bit angry, a bit of both, and our histories at times can be hard to know, so this might be the first time that you're learning about how ableism kills, and all of those feelings are needed and wanted here tonight. So thank you for being with us. Hazel will now take us through how this evening is going to unfold. Over to Hazel.
Thanks, Beth. So I'm going to talk about what we're going to be doing together this evening and what we'll be doing together throughout this week. You can find an easy read version of what I'm sharing in the description of this video, in the live chat, and in the link tree of the Remote Crips Instagram page. This evening is the start of a 7-day vigil for victims of ableism, state neglect, and systemic violence. The reason for it being 7 days is because of the number of people who have already died from this violence. During the years 2012 to 2019, under the austerity of the previous Conservative government, 335,000 people are believed to have died as a result of government policy decisions and cuts. We do not know all or even most of the names of these people. If we did, it would take 140 hours or 6 days to say all of them aloud. We have decided our vigil should last 1 day longer. 6 days to commemorate those who have died, and 1 day of rage, hope, and defiance that we do not see those numbers repeated by this Labour government. Today, on the first day of our vigil, we're going to do a few things. We are going to be joined by Dr. China Mills, who is the lead researcher on the Deaths by Welfare project, which is an archive of state violence. Ooh. I apologize for that. Somewhere, a YouTube video started auto-playing a TED Talk, which is not really how I wanted to be opening a vigil. But it's gone now, and we're starting with a laugh, and there are worse ways to start a vigil. Thank you for that. As I was saying, so Dr. China Mills is the lead researcher on the Deaths by Welfare project, which is an archive of state violence and disabled resistance stretching all the way back to 1940. We will hear a little about the collective resistance story that has shaped that project. And then we will read a list of dates and names of some of the disabled people taken from us during those years. We will also hear about how the DWP, MPs, and other institutions have tried to hide, delay, and deny the truth of deaths caused by cuts and by the designs of a ruthless system. Next, we'll start getting ready for our collective silence. You'll be asked to bring any candles, lamps, or other sources of light near to you. We'll all take photos of our sources of light and upload them to the website together. If you're currently watching this on www.cripvigil.co.uk, you'll be able to scroll down and see a section called Light a Candle. And that has information on how to contribute your design to a public shared digital memorial. And we'll also put a link to that in the description of this video. That shared folder will be open for 7 days, during which time we're going to gather hundreds, hopefully thousands, of photos and drawings to make a shared mural for those we've lost. Beth is then going to lead us in several minutes of candlelit silence as we focus on remembering. And then that's going to mark the end of this public section of the vigil. And if you are still feeling like you want to connect and express grief collectively, we're going to be moving to a Zoom call where Mac will be hosting an open mic for poetry, music, and stories until 9 p.m. First, it's my honor to welcome Dr. China Mills, who's going to talk to us a little bit about the Deaths by Welfare project.
Thank you so much, Hazel, and to all of you, and just a massive thank you for creating and holding this space in the beautiful way that you are. It reminds me a lot of a statement that I've often heard said by disability justice organisers, people like groups like Sins Invalid in the States, often say that we need to honour the dead and fight like hell for the living. And I think that sentiment really sums up this kind of space, and also a lot of the work that we've done with the Deaths by Welfare project at Healing Justice. And I think, you know, in that project, when we set it up in 2021, we wanted to remember the folks who have died, our disabled ancestors, and show the scale of harm. If the government at all investigates people's deaths, which is incredibly rare, they often treat people like cases who need to be examined individually. And we wanted to see patterns, I suppose, in what was making people's lives unlivable, what was killing people. And so we set the project up to, I suppose, create evidence, but evidence on disabled people's own terms about welfare state violence and how that connects to broader forms of state violence. And the whole project has been co-created with disabled folks, such as the brilliant John Pring at Disability News Service. And I suppose what we wanted to do was use the process of documenting evidence to really kind of build cross-movement solidarity by connecting people who experience and or are bereaved by different forms of state violence. So we tried to really hold with care and complexity people's kind of different dreams of justice, given what's happened. And I would say not all of us, but largely it's a non-reformist project, because we know how harm is designed into systems. It's a feature, not a bug. I suppose largely what the kind of the headlines of the work of the project are is that, you know, disproportionately distributed harms and premature deaths that target often racialized, low income and disabled folks is a feature, not a bug, of the welfare state. Is baked into a lot of the systems that we have. And the kind of cover story which is used by the state to somehow try to justify this or get like public consent for it, I think would be really familiar to everyone, in that certain groups of people, and those groups do shift sometimes a bit over time, are framed as like a burden on the economy, and are framed as if people are undeserving of welfare and of care. And that's used to somehow try to justify dismantling social safety nets and diverting public resources away from certain groups of people, and disabled folks being one of those key groups. And in that way, it kind of renders people as disposable to mass disablement, to death. It's something that Rick Burgess has taught me could be seen as or called a democide. And the story of that kind of welfare state violence is also a story of resistance. And I think for us in the work, that's massively important to centre disabled folks and allies' resistance. Been powerful challenges to being deemed to be a burden. and really, resistance that sort of demands government accountability and really tries to imagine what justice might look like within the state, but also beyond a state, more kind of abolitionist ideas around justice. And I think disabled folks' knowledge and practices of care have really countered that like abandonment of the state while building alternatives and alternative infrastructures, systems of care, much more rooted in interdependence, those that insist on the inherent value of all of our body minds. And I think then what a lot of that organising shows us, I suppose, and what I've really learned from it is that it might be strategic sometimes to talk about flaws or mistakes in the system and how they harm people, but actually that can risk making it sound like the system is broken rather than that it's functioning as it was designed to function. And sometimes that focus on flaws can really channel our energy into correcting and reforming what is ultimately a really violent system. And I think what I've learned from the project is those very different and very complex and sometimes quite conflicting understandings of what justice can mean in a context where so many people have died. And justice is something that's really about kind of radically transforming the conditions that we live in. And it also brings up questions, I think, that are really important to this kind of space of what do we need to practice now that might bring us closer to the futures that we want and to those like life-affirming, life-giving systems that we see real examples of right in the here and now, and we also want to build more of, and how our actions now can foster care and community and recognise everyone's inherent dignity and move us towards kind of justice and liberation. And I suppose that's about also collectively sort of creating a long-term imagining or dream or vision for more sort of life-affirming systems where everyone's body minds are inherently valued. And just as an end to that, we often say as part of the project against this like cover story of burden that no one is a burden and no one should be defined by their relationship to work, and that your and our dignity and worth are non-negotiable. And I'll stop there.
Thank you, China. I think I'm struck by what you're saying around kind of what is designed in the system and what is baked in the system. What is the system kind of working as intended? What we're going to move into next is we're going to be reading from the Deaths by Welfare timeline together. It's a timeline that chronicles both deaths, but also the denial of the systems that have caused those, a denial of responsibility, a denial of fact, a denial of reality, that some of these deaths even occurred, let alone that they were the result of mistakes or even the result of a system working exactly as intended. And I think the work itself that you've done with the project really speaks to that. So I'm going to share my screen, and then my plan is to invite China and Mac if you're feeling okay doing this. I thought we could take it in turns, essentially reading one of these each. Maybe I'll say the first one, followed by Mac, followed by China, and we'll try and read 2 of these cases each per year that we're talking about today, which is these years between 2012 and 2019. I think I also want to say here as well, just the kind of this timeline. So this Deaths by Welfare timeline, which is available in the description of this video as well, can be used as a research tool by us as disabled people in other ways. Obviously today we are focusing on this vigil, and so that's why we're focusing on these stories of death and denial. But this can also be used as a tool that documents stories of resistance and it can also be used as an accountability tool. There is a rich history here of kind of previous Labour governments and the ways that their behaviours today are not out of character. They are a kind of continuation of what we've seen in the past. And that knowledge and that information is here for disabled folks to relearn, re-remember as it keeps being stripped away from us. So just kind of this resource is here. It's available to us as disabled people. Today, what we're doing with this tool is that we are reading deaths and denials from the government, but it is here and available. Okay. 8th of June 2012, the death of Karen Sherlock, 2 weeks after she was told she would be eligible once again to receive employment support allowance.
20th of June 2012, email was leaked from the job centre managers to staff after a claimant attempted suicide after being told his sickness benefit was going to be cut off.
12th of September 2012, MP raises concerns over the death of Colin Traynor, whose family say they hold the government personally responsible.
25th of September 2012, the death of Edward Jacques, a week after his employment support allowance was stopped, which his family says was a major trigger. The coroner raises issues with the assessment process, specifically the failure to get medical evidence.
27th of September 2012, the death of Brian McArdle the day after he was deemed fit to work following a work capability assessment.
15th of November 2012, the Spartacus Network publishes the People's Review of the Work Capability Assessment, documenting links between being found fit for work and people's deaths.
2013, Linda Wooten dies 9 days after the Department for Work and Pensions upholds its decision to declare her fit for work.
4th of May 2013, the death of Stephanie Bottrill. Her suicide note blames the government's bedroom tax.
20th of July 2013, the death of David Clapson, 3 weeks after having his job seekers allowance sanctioned.
9th of August 2013, the death of Mark Wood after being found ineligible for employment support allowance.
23rd of August 2013, the death of David Barr, a month after the confirmation of the decision to find him fit for work, which his father says was the ultimate trigger leading to his suicide.
24th of September 2013, the death of Michael O'Sullivan after being found fit for work.
I have to read this one. 25th of September 2013, the death of Tim Salter after being found fit for work. A coroner later ruled that a major factor in his death was the reduction in his benefits.
7th of January 2014, inquest into the death of Michael O'Sullivan. The coroner concludes that the trigger for Michael O'Sullivan's suicide was his assessment as being fit for work and writes a prevention of future deaths report to the DWP, saying that there is a risk that future deaths will occur unless action is taken.
March 2014, the Mental Welfare Commission for Scotland publishes a report into the death of Miss D.E., finding that the process and denial of employment support allowance, ESA, were a major factor in her suicide.
22nd of August 2014, the DWP is questioned about what records they keep of deaths linked to the benefits system.
Late September 2014, the new Conservative Minister for Disabled People insists the Department for Work and Pensions is right to ignore reports of death linked to benefits.
14th of October 2014, DWP admits for the first time that it carries out investigations into some deaths of benefits claimants.
January 2015. A Labour MP speaks of core visits procedures, which are supposed to be followed when a vulnerable person is sanctioned.
2nd of February 2015. A man, a name kept anonymous, dies by suicide after being rejected for both personal independence payment and employment support allowance.
19th of February 2015. DWP admits that 40 of the 49 peer reviews into the deaths of benefit claimants that it's carried out were in response to suicides.
March 2015. The death of Sheila Holt following a work capability assessment.
The 18th of March 2015. The Commons Work and Pension Select Committee calls for a new independent body to investigate deaths of benefit claimants.
30th of April 2015. Black Triangle film have a film listing people whose deaths are linked to the welfare system.
8th of May 2015. DWP admits that 10 of the 49th claimants whose deaths were examined by peer reviews had had their benefits sanctioned.
29th of May 2015. The death of Luke Alexander Loy, 3 months after being found fit for work and sanctioned. His sister said he died as a result of Tory cuts.
26th of June 2015. DWP says coroner's letter expressing concern about the deaths of benefits claimants are not handled by a specific official, revealing no centralised process for accountability.
January 20th 2016. Coroner publishes Prevention of Future Deaths report into the death of Sophie or Pfizer, calling for the Department for Work and Pensions to take action to prevent future deaths.
28th of January 2016. Ministry of Justice refuses to investigate DWP's failure to respond to Stephen Carr's Prevention of Future Deaths report.
3rd of March 2016, Information Rights Tribunal hears Disability News Services case against the Information Commissioner over its finding that DWP did not need to release peer reviews into the deaths of benefit claimants.
23rd of March 2016, disabled activists ask Scottish police to investigate ministers over work capability assessment deaths.
April 2016, DWP sends out a reminder to staff about 6-point suicide prevention plan.
11th of April 2016, the Information Rights Tribunal rules the DWP must release redacted versions of peer reviews.
5th of May 2016. DWP figures show that of the 49 peer reviews into deaths of people claiming benefits, 18 of the people who had died by suicide had been claiming employment support allowance.
12th of May 2016, the DWP releases a redacted version of 49 peer reviews showing that ministers were repeatedly warned that the policies were putting the lives of vulnerable claimants at risk.
19th of May 2016, the death of Susan Roberts after being told she had lost a benefit appeal.
12th of January 2017. The death of Lawrence Bond hours after visiting the job centre.
February 2017. The Green Party sends a dossier of 50 deaths of benefit payments to the DWP, calling for an inquiry.
21st of February 2017, the death of Jodie Whiting after being found fit for work despite telling the DWP about her suicidal thoughts.
14th of March 2017. Disabled People Against Cuts and Inclusion London respond to the UN report raising the connection between benefit changes, people's deaths and government failures.
21st of April 2017, the death of Diane Hula linked to anxiety caused by the personal independence payment application process.
24th of May 2017 is the inquest into the death of Jodie Whiting, but fails to investigate DWP's potential role in her death.
25th of January 2018. Department for Work and Pensions decides not to trial a softer sanctions regime, despite this being recommended by the Commons Public Accounts Committee.
14th of February 2018, the Commons Work and Pensions Committee finds the assessment system is undermined by a pervasive culture of mistrust.
21st of May 2018, Department for Work and Pensions has no record of whether it showed documents about deaths related to work capability assessments to a reviewer.
June 2018. Research published from a 5-year study into welfare conditionality. Findings include link between sanctions and deaths, including suicide.
20th of June 2018, the death of Aaron Graham, months after DWP wrongly stopped his employment support allowance and failed to seek further medical evidence.
19th of July 2018, 4 opposition parties demand Department for Work and Pensions answers over work capability assessment deaths cover-up.
The last year we'll be talking about today, 22nd of January 2019. Ministers failed to include Department for Work and Pensions in cross-government suicide prevention plan, despite evidence linking suicides with disability benefits assessment system.
1st of February 2019, the Department for Work and Pensions figures shows thousands died after having personal independent payment claims rejected.
21st of February 2019, DWP failed 5 times to follow safeguarding rules before Jodie Whiting's suicide.
11th of March 2019. Department for Work and Pensions figures suggests the deaths linked to the work capability assessment may have fallen.
13th of March 2019, Prime Minister Theresa May questioned about the death of Jodie Whiting.
25th of March 2019, Department for Work and Pensions withholds documents on benefits related deaths from work capability assessment review team.
I think that's as much of the timeline as we're going to read today, but as you can see, it is relentless, and there was lots that we missed. thank you everyone for listening to that. I believe I'm now passing to Beth to talk a little before our shared silence. If you're feeling ready, Beth.
Thank you. And before we do our shared silence, can we just take a moment to gather any candles or lights or anything that you want to hold close for our few minutes of silence? And I just want to take a moment to thank everybody for reading that out. We need to hear that these things happen and that we aren't making them up. We need to know that these things are true. So thank you. So a reminder that disabled grief can take many forms, and whether you're here for a person or for yourself, just thank you for joining us in remembering tonight. Disabled histories are often buried beneath silence, erased through neglect and surrounded by denial. In the face that these cuts do not harm us, we come together to affirm what we know and what we know deeply, painfully, and truly, that this is happening, this is real, and it is costing our lives. Resisting forgetting is how we honour disabled people's histories. When headlines ask us, where did all these disabled people come from? It's not a genuine question, it's an act of erasure. They forget the institutions, the segregated classrooms, the locked wards, the fit for work assessments, the concentration camps, the eugenics. They forgot us, but we have always been there. And we will always be here. And if you would like to, now is the time to light your candle. And let us now hold some silence together. In this quiet, we remember. Thank you for holding that silence with us. Sometimes so what we carry can feel too big for words, and we got to share in a space where those words can rest for a bit. As we return to each other, and whatever you held in that silence is seen and honoured and felt here, and is real and true. Back to Hazel, if you can.
Thank you, Beth. Okay. Whilst our silence ends here, our vigil continues until next Monday at 7:30 p.m. Over the next 7 days, we encourage all of you to light or draw your candles and to share them with us. Add them to the digital memorial wall and also share them on social media. Tag your MPs. Make sure that people know that this is happening and what it means to us. We're now coming to the end. We're now coming to the end of the public section of our vigil. If you are leaving us here, we encourage you to grieve in your own way. Please rest, cry, create, and connect as your heart needs to this evening. I want to thank you all so much for being here and being together with us. These micro action Mondays, as we've been calling them, they've often been focused on action and finding something for us to do together. And this has felt, it is as important that we just are and that we just be. I think everything we've just heard and everything that we're feeling is just the weight of this force of people believing that we're unwanted. And it's not true. You're all incredibly wanted and you're all incredibly needed. And yeah, thank you all for being here with us. In a few moments, we'll be moving to a Zoom call where there'll be more collective opportunities for us to grieve together. We'll be sharing stories, poetry, music, and more candles to commemorate people we've lost. Playing us out, as it were, here on the stream, we're going to be sharing another act of resistance by disabled people mentioned in that list, which is the Black Triangle List film. This is a video that we'll be playing here for the next 20 minutes. Please don't feel you need to stay for all of it. You can come back and engage with it when you're ready. For those of you who aren't aware, the Black Triangle is a symbol belonging to an exceptionally bleak chapter of our history. The Black Triangle was used as a symbol in Nazi Germany to mark members of society deemed undesirable because of disability and illness. Disabled people were amongst the first to be publicly marked in this way, and disabled people bearing the Black Triangle symbol were amongst those to be taken to be executed in concentration camps. The Black Triangle campaign draws on this often forgotten legacy of the consequences of seeing disabled people through a lens of worthiness and productivity. In the words of the campaign, Black Triangle was established to shed light upon and galvanise opposition against the current vicious attacks on the fundamental human rights of disabled people by the British government through its use of work capability assessments to reclassify sick and disabled individuals as fit for work. The Black Triangle list contains over 100 names of disabled people who died following work capability assessments, benefit sanctions, and other decisions during the years of austerity. And that's what I'm going to be sharing with you now.